recorded, and their FFI has a YouTube site. So look for our videos on YouTube now, and not, they're trying to move them over from the education center. So I want to say, if you go to Women Connect, I think there's maybe half a dozen or so that are on there. So they're slowly being migrated over. It is my pleasure. I'm going to highlight your beautiful face. This is Susan. Hi, Susan.
Hi,
I've
everybody.
known her, oh my goodness, now for how many years? Since the first FFI, maybe 8 years ago, I think we met in passing. And then I went to a sister's rendezvous 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And she's been stuck with me ever since. I keep recruiting her.
Yes.
So she is going to talk about safety tonight.
Yes. So I have a little PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to share. And let me just say that those of you that know me, I am an accountant, and so I'm better at spreadsheets than PowerPoints. And now I'm not even seeing it on my screen. Okay, just a second. Safety on the water. This is the one I want.
Kim's gonna tie while you're talking. Woohoo!
Oh,
Way
I
to
better
go,
go off
Kim.
on video then. Sorry. I'm fishing this weekend, so I've got to get some flies
That's
tied.
all right. You're an active listener.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So
Yeah, we'll buy it.
so start from the beginning. Slideshow.
You're
Okay.
sharing. What were you sharing? A taser?
I'll get to that. Save your question.
I don't know
You'll
if
see
I want to fish with you.
So safety on the water. This is a picture. Can you see it very well, or do I need to?
No, can you make it full screen on yours?
Well, it is full screen on mine. That makes it smaller.
Yeah, we're seeing just the.
Oh, go
slide.
down to the bottom and click the little screen. Yeah, keep going down there. Cut over a little. No. Go to the left. You'll go to the little screen. Not that one. Oh, no. One in the middle.
From the beginning. That one? Can you see it now?
Here it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Good.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm an accountant. I know spreadsheets.
Not that one. Oh, no. One in the middle.
So, can you see it now?
Here it is.
Yes.
Yep, that's good.
Everybody see it?
Uh-huh.
I'm an accountant. I know spreadsheets.
Oh, I hear somebody's Facebook in the background. So participants, if you could mute yourself while Susan's talking, please. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess the first thing, I'm going to go over a lot of different things about safety on the water. And this one I thought was fun, and Sandy was gracious enough to agree to have it posted. This was, what river were you on?
On the White River in Arkansas.
And her husband, well, Sandy's nose got in the way of her husband's back cast. Let's just and her husband got in the way. Who's got the noise going?
I still hear it.
Yeah, me too. So I guess the thing about this one, I guess what you could do for safety is not fish with Mike.
There you go.
Or maybe not stick your nose out. But in reality, this might happen. So we'll talk about what you might do in a little bit. So let's just talk about, like, know where you're going to go. If you're going to go fishing, have an idea of what the conditions are going to be like. You don't want to end up like this guy. There have been times where I've gone down a road and thought, oh, this looks like it might go somewhere. And then you get there and you have to back all the way out. Have you ever done that? So just really, there's so many good maps available, and probably even on your Google travel maps that you can actually look at the roads and possibly get conditions on them. So just be aware. I guess the other thing that I'm going to really stress on this is trust your intuition, because that's what will drive you ultimately. Is if this just feels shaky, if this feels like a road I shouldn't go down, don't go down it. If you're in a spot that doesn't feel good, go somewhere else. It's not worth it. It's not worth your stress either. So, so first thing is just know where you're going. The second thing is to fish with a friend. And that's not always possible, but if it is, it's always helpful to have somebody there, so that if you, well, there's two of you, first of all, and that might be intimidating to somebody that might wish you harm. It might, your conversation or singing or whatever might stop a bear. There's somebody there to rescue you if you fall in, possibly. So again, use your intuition, but if you can fish with a friend, that's a good place to start. And if you're fishing with a friend, and I don't know how you guys fish, but when I fish, we get separated by quite a bit, typically. And so having walkie-talkies to keep in touch is a good way to go. Do any of you use walkie-talkies when you're fishing? I can't hear anybody. So I'll tell you a little story. I was down on, I don't know if Linda's on here, but I was fishing with Linda Miller down on the McCloud River in California, and we had walkie-talkies because we tend to just kind of go our own way and then meet back up at lunch. And there was another couple in the parking lot that was fishing, a younger couple, and there were maybe 3 or 4 of them, and they also had walkie-talkies, but we didn't know it at the time. And we got down to where we were fishing, and we heard this noise on the walkie-talkies, and this young couple had just walked by where we were fishing and were communicating with the party behind them that they had just passed the grannies. So that was us. We became known as the grannies then. They were on the same channel we were on. So
Susan, I thought I saw Mary Ann saying no to the walkie-talkies. Can Mary Ann explain why she was signaling no?
Because I don't have a set.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right.
Okay.
she's jealous.
So, but
She knows
then
she knows the granny story though.
yeah, I was like, say the granny story. So, but if all of you guys know Dave, he's not much of a talker. So.
Well, he might not get a word in edgewise, Mary Ann.
Yeah, that's possible.
Anyway, on the walkie-talkies, especially if you have 2 groups, it's really, really wonderful. Now that we have cell phones, you know, if you have service, that works great as well. But a lot of times out on lakes or something, you're not going to have service. And you can get them fairly cheap now at Cabela's or at Bass Pro, which is all the same now. That will go, but you do want to get one that'll probably do at least 2 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a question on, is there a suggestion for brand or type or
I don't
cost?
have a suggestion, but does anybody else that has one want to make a suggestion?
You know, I don't even remember what mine were, and I've still got them, and they're just still packed away because I haven't used them. But I would just suggest make sure they do at least 2 miles, and that you carry extra batteries.
Patty, how do you determine the range of a walkie-talkie? Is it part of the specifications?
Yes, but you probably, when you save the box and take them out and try them, because sometimes they'll say that and they're not, because I know I've gone through, I went through 2 or 3 sets, but I used to use them a lot in Boy Scouts as well, because I was a scoutmaster. We had the different folks doing different things, and especially when we would go to some place like Six Flags or Disney World, we would have groups and we would meet up using the walkie-talkies. But of course, now everybody's got cell phones, so that probably wouldn't matter as much. But when you're on the water, the problem is that you just need range. And if you're walking, that's fine. If it's, you know, if you're going to be in boats, I make sure mine's 5 mile range.
Mm.
Yeah. I would
Okay.
imagine they get more expensive as you get greater coverage, but
They do, but they're not near as expensive as they used to be. I mean, you could get really awful ones and they were $100, but now they're way cheaper.
yeah.
And that's probably because people use cell phones mostly. Somebody asked about being waterproof. Yeah, but you know, any electronics, even if it says waterproof, it wouldn't hurt to carry a heavy duty baggie and put them in that.
Yeah.
And on the Apple Watch, if you swipe up, below the mute button is a walkie-talkie. So you can walkie-talkie to anybody else that has an Apple Watch that you connect the two. So remember, the Apple Watch is waterproof.
To 30 feet.
Yep.
But if you're down 30 feet, you might be beyond needing a walkie-talkie.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yeah. Any other questions on that one? Okay, let's talk about gear. So the bottoms of our feet, we're going to start there. We all have our preferences. And I just put pictures in here of all the different ones that are available. Not all of them, but you know, the ones that are easily available. And I have corkers so I can interchange them. But personally, I like the felt sole. But I know that others like the other one. So what do you guys like and why?
Susan, when you say you like the felt soles, is that the one on the far right?
Yes, the one that you can barely see because it's white.
A lot of states don't allow felt anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, and I know that's true. And it's also true in some of the national parks that you have to have the Vibram soles.
I like the Vibram soles with tungsten cleats in them, you know, tungsten, those doohickeys that you screw in.
The studs. or
The
whatever.
studs, yeah, thank you. Yeah, the tungsten, they don't wear as fast as the other ones. My husband showed me his boots today and they're like, the studs are worn down to nubs. The tungsten, because they're not tungsten holds up really well and really grips the rocks well.
Part of that decision is what you're wading in, because
Yeah.
I find felt soles really effective in the western rivers where the rocks are slippery. But in the driftless, I'm very comfortable with the Vibram soles, with or without studs so far.
I
That's
like to
good to
show you
know.
the ones I love. I went out to go get them.
So
And-
I've found the ones with the studs in them are slippery on the, not necessarily in the water, but when you're walking to the water on those rocks, I feel like my feet are gonna go out from under me.
Right.
Hey,
I have a question.
Susan, can you hear me? This is Judy Harris.
Yes, hi.
Hey, hi. Thank you for doing this tonight. I just was gonna pop in. I have, and I bet a lot of you do as well. I have 2 pairs of boots. I mean, I was unaware of the restrictions around felt, so you've just raised my awareness on that. But I have an Orvis pair of ladies wading boots that are lug sole with the tungsten studs in them that are marvelous. If I'm in a lot of cases where there's not a lot of, pardon how I refer to it, but if there's not a lot of rock snot on the rocks, like there is in the Deschutes, which is craziness, the lug soles are awesome, but somebody was asking for a specific kind. That lightweight Orvis lug sole boot with tungsten studs in it is fabulous because it is lightweight. And if you know, like Susan, I know you go hiking in a lot on the McLeod and the Upper Sac and stuff like that. If you have to hike a long ways, the weight of the boot can make all the difference in the world in achy knees later at night and stuff like that. And then I have a felt pair, and they're just Reddingtons. They aren't anything special, but they're Reddingtons with felt sole and tungsten studs in those as well. I wouldn't, for me personally, I wouldn't step foot in water without the studs on them.
Do the corkers ones, the felt ones, have studs also?
You
Yeah.
can get them with or without studs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Now, does it come with all these different bottoms with one pair of corkers?
I think you get two. I think you get the one on the right and the one in the middle.
No,
when
no, no,
you-
no, no.
No?
So on corkers, you'll get one on the right with the small, like I call them the snow tire studs.
Okay.
And then you'll get one no, actually you have to ask for it, Sue. So corkers, you're gonna get felt and vibrant, no studs, and a lot of shops will go ahead and pop out and give you the felt in the Northwest with the studs, I should say. That's just in the Northwest, Oregon and Washington. And then the two on the left, are what they call their triple threat. I'm a big Corkers fan, but then I'm the one in the cast, right? But they're the triple threats, and they cost about $70 more. I think it was Evelyn that asked that question.
Yes.
They cost about $70 more, but a physical therapy appointment is how much?
Yeah. I know. True.
Okay.
I've been through physical therapy too.
Yeah.
Now, so these things stay on the boots really easily, really well too.
Yeah, if you tighten them. Yep. I can go about 100 days on a pair, 100 to 150 days on a pair of Corkers triple threats. Easy for me to say.
Yeah.
So
I think the felt soles here in the Pacific Northwest, the felt soles don't last as long. At least for me, they don't. I've gone through 3 pairs in 2 years.
yeah,
So-
yeah. They're kind of teeny weeny
They are.
studs, right?
Well, and the felt isn't as thick. I noticed the felt on the boots when I bought them was not as thick as the replacement
Oh, interesting.
felt that I bought. So
Yeah,
it just didn't last very long.
yeah. But I'm a huge Corkers fan, and I'm a huge fan of the triple threat. So the two on the left.
Yeah.
So
Any other comments or questions on this?
The only thing I'll say as a pathologist, the mortality rate for people who break a hip after the age of 60 is 50% in 1 year. And only 20% of the people who break a hip and recover their level of function before they broke the hip. So this is a really important, very, very important concept to grasp and to adopt. So I'm glad this is brought up. Thanks, Susan.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay. What is wrong with this picture?
No waiting staff,
Exactly.
and they're not holding hands.
Exactly.
And it's all men.
It's all men. It was the only picture because women would have their waiting staffs and probably be holding hands. Okay, and maybe they think that holding hands looks gay and they don't want to go there, but having a waiting staff is another piece of gear that I consider essential. And if I forget mine or I can't open it or whatever, I go find a big piece of stick or something that I can use because I just don't feel like I have the balance any longer to be out there without it. So what I'm curious about is if anybody has a favorite waiting staff that they would recommend, because I'm in the market for a new one. and most people I talk to don't really like their waiting staff, or it sticks, or they can't get it apart, or, so
I like mine. I have a Sims folding one that looks similar to this, except I don't think they're making that version anymore. Marianne.
Yeah, you have a
you
really
those.
you have a really old version of that.
Yeah.
Their newer version it's really hard to get them to, there's little, what would you call them? It's really hard to get the
Those
the
push
safety, those push buttons and
buttons.
spot, right?
Yeah.
I do like the, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'll have to ask Dave when he comes here. I myself love my bamboo waiting staff. And I, to be honest with you guys, I would think about just going with wood. We're all getting to the age where we probably wouldn't hurt if we were using our waiting staff to walk to the water. And
True.
if true.
And it floats.
And it floats. It still floats downstream if it's not attached. But Willa's right.
Yeah.
It floats. So like when I'm standing in the water, it's floating. It's not. And then it doesn't make as much noise. There's no metal on it to clang on the rocks. So that's one of the reasons I converted to the bamboo one, and probably won't buy another
One
metal
challenge
one.
I have is being a short person. Some of these waiting staffs are like practically over my head. So make sure you unfold them and test them out before you buy one.
And I have a comment too about like the,
Bamboo waiting staff, is that a bamboo waiting staff or is it just a piece of bamboo you got somewhere?
Me?
Yeah.
Mary Ann.
It's a 5-piece. It's a bamboo. It's got 5 pieces on it. So it was made like a bamboo rod with no taper.
So is it readily available or is it something you had custom made?
Well, Dave made it for me, but and he, so
What did you have to do for that?
what did I have to do for that? Nothing. Oh, I had to field test it for a couple summers.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, I really like it. It gets beat up really bad, so that's where we're not really going to sell any of them. So,
My suggestion with the waiting staff is when you buy one, how you fold your waiting staff up and store it. Because I have an old Orbis one and I had to make myself a thing to hold it all together because the strap wouldn't hold it together when you don't have it out in the water. So it's just like, make sure it's one you can get out easily, but yet when you fold it up and put it in its satchel or whatever, it fits and doesn't come out undone while you're walking down the street. So try them out in the store, walk with them or something.
Yeah.
the one metal one that Dave and I like is the REC one. It unfolds real easy like the old Sims, and it's got magnetic kind of holders, and it comes apart pretty easy too. So, or folds up pretty easy.
And do the cords last in it?
But they should have a new, I need to check on that. So you're very good. I've had problems with the cords, but you got to realize I'm using them 100 times a year, if not more. So if you're going fishing 10 or 20 times a year, you'll be good. So, and they were supposed to replace the cords. I just haven't followed up on it.
Do they replace them for you or do you have to figure out how to do that yourself?
Well, they were going to, the conversation I had with them was they were going to redesign them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Anybody else have thoughts and ideas on waiting belts? I mean, waiting staffs? Okay. Waiting belts. This isn't a real pretty one, but it's functional. So the thing about waiting belts, and hopefully you all use one, is that it needs to be relatively secure around your middle so that it will keep water out longer if you do fall in. So
It doesn't have to be pretty. You could use a piece of cord and
yes,
it would serve the same purpose.
exactly. So has
So-
anybody
so the-
experienced that falling in piece?
I have.
Yeah.
And I was very thankful I had that waiting staff snug around my waist because I only got water in the top of my waders.
That's right.
Until I stood up and then it went down.
There was a little of that.
I had a situation twice where because an individual had a wading belt on, I was able to grab them once they had fallen. So that's the other piece of it is, you know, if it's a decent one and strong enough, if for some reason you fall for whatever reason and you're head down, somebody can pull you up. So
Yeah, that's a good point. My husband had a similar experience on the river.
Yeah.
Helping somebody.
So the front of Minnesota TU magazine has kids on a river in waders with no belts.
Oh my
This month or this quarter. And I couldn't believe they put that there.
Yeah. Who knows? So wear your wading belt. And this one, you know, I don't know how many of you row, how many of you have a boat, and may not necessarily be a boat like this. It could be a little pontoon boat. But the thing you want to know is, what is your limit? Know your skill level when you're going out there. If you have never rowed a class 3 rapid, this is not the time to go down the wild and scenic section of the Rogue River. You know, just and if you're with a guide, well, in Oregon, I know we have people from all over the country here, but in Oregon, if you're going through a class 3 rapid or greater, you're required to wear a life jacket. So make sure you have a life jacket on. If you've got your waders on, make sure you have your wading belt tight. Hopefully you'll never experience this, but you know your limits.
If I could just interject regarding life jackets in boats, they now make inflatable life jackets that there are actually some that automatically inflate when they get wet.
Wow.
And they're very minimal because the actual bladder that inflates when it gets wet is rolled up in the life jacket. And they're very lightweight, so they're not bulky to wear at all. And my husband and I fish on the White River. We have a boat, and there's just no reason, in my opinion, ever to be in a boat without one of those life jackets.
I want to interject to read the instructions and put it on correctly. My nephew had his twisted and his brother had to puncture it.
Oh, wow.
Because somehow it was cutting off his air. I don't know how he put it on.
Yeah, he definitely, because they're like just a little, I mean, they have armholes and you clip them in the front, so it shouldn't be that difficult, but.
And make sure it's fitted correctly, Yeah,
that too, yeah.
Because
all the game and fish people here wear them. They just wear them, and they're so light and easy to wear. It's not a big bulky thing that's uncomfortable or hot to wear.
You have to replace the cartridges at any point?
You know, you do have to replace the cartridges like every couple of years. And some people, when they replace the cartridges, depending on what body of water they're dealing with, they'll put on and what time of year they'll put on the life jacket and jump in to see what the experience is of having the thing inflate. I've not done that because it was too cold when I was replacing the cartridge, but what I did do is I put a rope on the life jacket and I threw it in the water, and yeah, it inflated. So even though the cartridge was due to be exchanged, it still functioned fine. And they have an indicator on there that tells you that the cartridge is still good. It's green if it's good, and it turns red if it's not. But you just are supposed to replace them every couple of years for routine maintenance.
Yeah, I think
if you are flying, don't take those CO2 cartridges with you. Pick them up once you get there, right? You can take the life jacket, but don't take the CO2 cartridges.
That's a good point, yeah.
And I think the automatic one works like with something dissolves in the water and then it pops out. And that's what disintegrates over time. And that's the part I think that has to be replaced.
And don't leave them in your boat over the winter. They'll freeze and blow up.
Wow.
I know from experience.
You can get auto and manual jackets. I have one. So
Yeah, this
you're
is true.
correct. There is a little thing that dissolves, that's the automatic part, it gets wet, but the CO cartridges are one and done. So you need to reload it. If it inflates, you need to replace the CO2 cartridge.
Yeah.
But you can, mine, I can make it be automatic or manual. And I always have it on manual, because if I hop out of my canoe and I'm gonna wade, I don't want it to go off.
Sure.
I don't need it to.
Yeah.
There is a thought on that one, because if you hit your head on a rock or you hit your head somewhere and you don't have the possibility to manually inflate it, I just think we have to be aware of that.
Yeah, and the ones that, as I think it was Marianne that was talking, the ones that inflate automatically also have a pull tag, a string that you can pull it and
That's the manual, so you can make it be auto or manual.
Yeah.
You know, I did an experiment last summer with the life jackets, and my friends were teasing me because mine was 20 years old, the cartridge. So we blew it, but you can replace them at the sporting goods store for $12 or so. And the bicycle shop is identical, and they're about $2.
Yeah.
We actually blew up the vest both ways, and the bicycle one did the same thing.
No, I'll be darned.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, so the other thing to know your limits on is wading. So, you know, I don't have a real strong center of gravity. And so I usually don't go out over my mid thigh. I just feel, especially on a river like the Deschutes where there's a strong current. But it's different for everybody. So you need to, again, use your intuition, what feels right to you. So, and just make a and you know, every river's a little different too, but just how comfortable do you feel? And just tell yourself, I'm only going to wade up to my what? And then try and stick with that, and you'll probably be okay. But if you do fall in, what should you do? The first thing is don't panic. Panicking is usually what gets people in trouble. So if you slip and fall in, point your feet and your butt downstream. So the river will be taking you downstream. Your feet are out in front of you. Your waders are gonna get some water in them, but you're gonna float, because I don't know if you've noticed when you go out, if you've gone out up to your crotch in the water, your waders kind of suck up against your legs. Have you guys all experienced that?
Yes.
So you know that's going to take, it's going to take water longer to get down there. You've got your wading belt on, so you can float. And so as long as you don't panic, you should be able to float. And you might not be able, it might not be the place right there to get out. You might have to go through a rapid to actually get to a point where you can get out. But just try and keep your wits about you is probably the best thing to do in that situation. Yeah.
Susan, what do you do with your rod?
Oh, you hang on to that thing, especially if there's a fish on it. Did you
And if
not
it's a
watch a
bamboo
river
rod,
run
it might
through it?
float.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Evelyn.
What'd you say, Evelyn? Sorry.
Says
It's a bamboo rod, you might float.
The reel takes it down, FYI, from experience. But you guys let go of the rod. You can replace the rod. You can't replace your life. So
Right.
that's what I always tell my anglers I take out. So
Okay, we've probably all fallen in, maybe not to the point where we're splashing through rapids, but you know, the main thing is don't panic. And we talked a little bit about life jackets. So here's a couple of examples of personal flotation devices, PFDs. You know, the one on the right obviously has all the bells and whistles to put your gear if you want that. And the one on the left is much more minimalist. But either one would probably work. Does anybody have one like these, either of these?
The ones that we have are similar to the blue one. Those are the ones that we wear in the boat.
Yeah.
Horse, they call them a horse collar style, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nay.
Okay.
The one on the right,
I like that.
depending on what you're doing, and how fast the current is and stuff, those are good ideas. And I like the notion that you can keep your fishing gear in it because I wear a vest, but those aren't made for women who are amply endowed. And that's problematic for some of us.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother topic, gear for women.
Yes, it is.
We should have that for one of our training Tuesdays, huh? Maybe put that down, Sandy.
I got it on the list.
Miss Mayfly could do that.
Yeah. So moving on to first aid, we probably all have a little first aid kit, maybe in our car or in the tent if we're camping or in the RV. And these are okay. If you look at it, look up here, there's an oval iPad. There's an iPad that comes with it, but it's not the kind you're thinking. It's mostly, if you look at this, it's mostly bandages, and there's some scissors and tweezers here to maybe cut. There's some gauze. There probably is some ointment in there, like a Neosporin or something, but it's not real heavy duty. So if you've taken a first aid class, that's good. I would highly recommend it. The last one I took, they talked a lot about, if somebody if this happens, do the minimal and then get them to emergency and blah blah blah. There's probably some more severe things that could happen, and so if you do know first aid, I think it would be helpful. If somebody broke their leg, say, or if you're rowing in a boat, they could have the oar go through their lung, or I don't know.
Oh, God.
Nice.
Not trying to be gross, just
One of the things I love about fishing with women is there's almost always a nurse in our groups.
yes. And so,
Hey, Susan, to add, I just had a couple points to add on the first aid kit.
Please do.
Cool. So some tricks I learned is one, doesn't hurt to have a small tube of ice cream frosting in your first aid kit. Because if you're with someone who's diabetic, you can put that, if you will, a little bit of that icing on your finger and administer that to them. They put some instant sugar into their system. And then the other thing I have in my is a small bottle of Technut for poison oak. So just simple, two little things you'll never find in a first aid kit you can buy. And how often should you replace your first aid kit, Susan?
Oh, every year.
What about a snake bite kit?
I think that's good to have over on the Deschutes.
They actually recommend that a snake bite you treat for shock.
Yeah, you don't do anything.
You don't do anything. You clean it, and you get you treat the person for shock. Get the leg elevated. More than likely, it's on the leg. Get the leg elevated, and get them the hell out of there as fast as you can. So
Marianne, do you, as a guide, do you ask your guests up front if any of them has allergies, like to bees or anything? And if they do they carry an EpiPen with them?
Yeah, so, I believe, and people need to take responsibility for themselves. So I expect them to raise that. I mean, anytime you book, they kind of ask that. But first aid classes are required to know how to do an EpiPen. I don't carry one because they're too expensive. So, but
They also, you have to replace them about every year.
yeah. So, my expectations are if you need an EpiPen, you have it with you. So,
Okay. Any other comments on this? I'm just this next screen is just other things you might want to have that probably aren't in your first aid kit, but you might want to have with you if you're camping or you have an RV or in your car. You know, some kind of painkiller like Tylenol, Advil, that may be in the first aid kit. Or a gel if you get a toothache, Pepto-Bismol or Mylanta, Tums, Gatorade, which will help you replace electrolytes. And some of this depends on how long you're going to be out. But, you know, if you go camping for 3 or 4 days, these are just some things you might want to include in your arsenal, besides what Marianne said. And a thermometer is one thing that I've never seen in a first aid kit, but that might be helpful.
We all have them now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and some of these things are good if you travel with a dog, since we were having dog show and tell earlier. A lot of these, like the Benadryl, you could also use for your pets.
And you can order very cheaply a barrier that works if you have to give mouth to mouth to someone. And so you're not in direct contact. A lot of times if somebody is not breathing when they wake up, they puke, and that's not pleasant if you're giving mouth to mouth. And they have clip-ons to your purse. They have clip-ons to a first aid kit. Just Google CPR Mouth Barrier. And so I have one of those in each car and in our kit.
You know, what's very good to also take with you in the summertime, and that's the Pedialyte popsicle sticks.
Yeah.
What do you use the Vicks Vapor Rub for?
You could use it for a lot of different things, but one is obviously if you're stuffed up. I get stuffed up pretty easily out in the desert, especially. I don't know if I'm allergic to sage or what. I just put a little of that in just at the bottom of my nose, and that helps. I've used it on my lips to help.
It has some anti-inflammatory properties too. So if you don't have anything else to put on a bug bite, the menthol that's in Vicks will help it a little bit.
It also helps if you're fishing next to a dead deer.
Oh my gosh.
Or if somebody puts a dead fish under your sleeping bag.
That's right.
Any other questions on this page? Okay, this is one of my favorites. So this little thing is a Garmin Inreach Mini. I just discovered this year. So when I go out by myself fishing, maybe, I don't know, 50% of the time. And this last year I was out and I had to hike in about 3 miles to where I wanted to fish. And I told some friends here in town where I was going to be, but they had no idea because this was down in California. And as I was hiking, I thought, geez, if I tripped and broke my leg, I would have to sit here until somebody came along. No one would know where I was. So this little thing is a handheld satellite communication device. And it will give, you know, most of the places I fish seem to be off the grid. There's no cell service. And so this will give you off the grid communication. You can send and receive text messages. And I need to preface that a bit. If somebody else has one of these, you can send and receive between the two of them. But if they don't, I can send a text message out to somebody, but they can't text me back unless I have texted them. So they can't just text me like you could with a phone. You can also do things like track your journey and somebody can see where you are. And then there's this little red button that's on the side there, right down here. is an SOS button. So if I were to fall and break my leg, I could just, and I couldn't, there was nobody there, I could press that SOS, and the Garmin gods would find me.
So I, it's called a Spot, S-P-O-T, and it's just a different brand. And I will say that it had to be used. Yeah, it had to be used for a flats boat in the Bahamas where they ran aground and night came and they couldn't be found. So it's just a different, but it's nice. They're good to use.
They are. I actually was painting a room down at the coast that had 12-foot ceilings, and I was there by myself, and I was using this extension ladder, and I thought, God, if I fall off, nobody's going to find me for weeks. And so I put this thing around my neck so that if I did fall and I was conscious, I could at least press that SOS button. So it's kind of like one of those.
On this Garmin, don't you have to have a service?
Yes.
Like your phone, you have to pay for that. So
Yeah.
you need to know that there's a charge for that every month. I know I looked at getting one, and when I'm back out fishing again, especially because I may be by myself, you know, when I'm going places like to Canada or whatever, I hope to, I will get one of those.
It's not expensive. The service is like $11 a month.
That's
So
better than the Spot. The Spot was atrociously expensive. I bought one and not knowing it was going to cost me a fortune to maintain it. So that sounds better.
yeah,
For
these
the government. Have to look into
these will run you right now. I think they're about $350, but they go on sale around Christmas time. So, you know, it might be a nice Christmas present for somebody. Okay, moving right along. So bear spray, wasp spray, hornet spray, whatever you want to call it. There's also bear horns. Most of us now have a key fob for our car that has an alarm on it. Those are just some things that you might want to consider carrying with you or having with you when you're out by yourself, especially. And not necessarily for bears. It could be the male type of bears, possibly, if we're single women out there by ourselves. And I know I've been in one really uncomfortable circumstance where I wished I had had my bear spray with me and didn't, but I had my waders on and was in the middle of the river, and the guy didn't have waders, so I felt somewhat protected. So any other, sorry.
Would a whistle work too?
Oh, it could. I mean, it kind of depends on what your goal is. You know, theoretically, with these two things here, this is to really impair whoever's, if there's somebody coming after you.
Mm-hmm.
A moment.
Okay.
Sorry, my dog all of a sudden got brave. But there, you know, you may just want to draw attention to where you are too.
Mhm.
So a whistle would work for that, or if you're heading to your car and there's somebody chasing you, you can use your key fob to set the alarm off and notify people. Hopefully there's people around. So
Oh, good.
just a couple of ideas.
You know, somebody brought up a point to me that I hadn't thought of before, which was that key fobs are electronic now. So if they get wet, they don't work so well. So I've started putting my keys in a baggie.
Yeah.
We just got home from Bend a few minutes ago, and my car now has a waterproof separate third key that's
wow.
just like USB drive size.
Mm-hmm.
So it's waterproof and will go right in my waders.
All right. See, you have to have newer cars to get that kind of stuff.
Moral of the story, go buy a new car today.
I did that, Marianne. I was in Bend all day.
If you drive an old pickup, you don't have to worry about your key.
That's right.
You can leave the keys in it.
Right.
Hmm. Okay, and then the one that Corey asked me about earlier is tasers. Somebody gave me this one that's up in the on the top, the flashlight taser one. She had gotten it for Christmas from her son-in-law or something, and she didn't want it. And she knew I fished by myself sometimes, so she gave me that. So I thought, well, I might as well throw this in here. I don't know how comfortable I would be getting that close to somebody, close enough to tase them, but I guess if they're coming after me, I might. Has anybody ever used one?
I haven't used one. I haven't used one, but my husband is a retired police officer. And neither of those tasers is going to do much of anything.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah. I've had one for about 40 years that we bought to use if you got a rattlesnake bite. You're supposed to deionize the venom.
Okay.
It's very exciting in lieu of taking battery cables to yourself.
That is a better alternative.
Yep.
That sounds kind of like a I would say an old wives' tale, but I can't imagine women doing that to themselves.
Oh, it was if your dog got bitten is where we read about it. Yeah.
Oh, well, I couldn't do that to my dog. So this is my last slide, but I would probably get in trouble if I didn't mention that you could have a gun. You would probably need a concealed carry permit. I know nothing about guns, absolutely nothing. I've never shot one. I don't own one. And so I didn't put it on here because I really couldn't tell you anything about it. So if you guys want to talk about them, then you can go ahead. I prefer to stick to less lethal means.
Well, I will say this about guns. If you are going to carry a gun for the purpose of protecting yourself, you have to be mentally prepared to kill somebody with it. And if you are not mentally prepared to do that, then do not carry it, because chances are it will be taken away from you and used against you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what the police will tell you.
Yep.
Yep.
And if you're in the Walmart parking lot, duck if you see somebody doing something, because you won't believe how many guns will come out.
True.
If you get a hook in your nose, you wish that all of your flies are barbless.
Absolutely. This was a barbless fly, but we both have taught ourselves how to pop a barbed fly out with your fishing line.
I think everybody should learn that. My husband.
Everyone should learn that. It pops out so slick. If you push it through, you've then caused 2 injuries and more damage to cut off the barb. Yeah, it works. It's the 1, 2, 3 pull that's the scary part, but it works.
Yeah. And you don't even feel it when it comes out.
No.
It just happened to me yesterday. I
really? Oh,
didn't get one in my nose, but I got one in my finger.
And I would, this message is, if you don't wear glasses or sunglasses, we provide safety glasses for everybody that comes to our fly casting clinic. And this is exactly the reason, because this thing bounced off my glasses before it impaled my nose. So it would have stuck through my eye first.
Wow.
There's just no reason not to have glasses on.
I would always wear glasses.
I even have a pair of frames that have clear glass in them that I carry in case I'm out fishing, like right at dark or right at dusk, and I'll switch to them if I have to, because your eyes are just so precious. You don't want to You don't want to hook them dry.
And guys, stay hydrated.
Yeah, that's
It's a
good advice.
pain to carry a water bottle, but you know, you can put it in the front of your waders. They have those collapsible water bottles now. You really, you may not be thirsty because you're on the water, but it's really important to stay hydrated too when you're out fishing all day.
Right. My husband puts in the summertime, he has a Camelback that he'll put in the back of his vest because there's a pocket in the back of his vest, and he sticks that in there. And then I sewed a little loop on his vest so he can thread the hose through, and so it's just right there, easy for him to drink from. And I had one in my older vest that was bigger, but I now have a really small vest, so I don't have that capability. But that's a very good point. The other point that I wanted to bring up is if you're fishing on a tailwater that has a dam, and that's why it's a tailwater, you need to pay very close attention if you're wading, very close attention to what's going on with the water levels, because even if, like on the White and the Norfolk here in Arkansas, they'll have predictions for what they're going to do with the water, but it can change without notice. And a couple of weeks ago, my husband was wading on the Norfolk with one of our local guides, and they were fairly far out in the river, and all of a sudden the water came up fairly quickly. And the Norfolk has a very narrow canyon. So when they turn on the generators, the water comes up really quickly. And he said it was scary, and he's very fit, and it was scary. They both made it out, but it was pretty scary. And you can get knocked off your feet and washed down river on some of these tailwaters. So it's really a good idea to pick a rock that's exposed. And some people will even put like a stick or something on it so that they keep watching that rock. And if that stick floats away or if the rock starts to disappear, it's time to get out of the water. That's
Good suggestion, Susan. Anybody else have any safety suggestions? Thank you, Susan. That was really, really, really good reminder.
One thing is she said about letting people know where you're going and when you're going out fishing. And one thing to do is to take a note and stick it on your refrigerator, because people will always see a note if it's on the refrigerator. And so if you tell them where you are, then they'll know where to look for you after. And that was something that we learned when our daughter went away to school in Montana, out in the middle of the wilds, that, you know, every time she left the house, she left a note on the refrigerator because somebody said to do that. So
these days, you can also use your, I don't know if Androids have this feature, but iPhones have a feature where you can share your location.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get in the maps there, the map app.
What if you don't have an iPhone? You know, you don't take your phone with you, or you leave it home, or it's in the car.
Yeah.
You know, so
you should take it with you.
Karen, you raised your hand. Do you have something, Karen Hall?
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on that, you know, how to pull a barbed hook out of your skin without ripping it. There's some good videos on YouTube that show you how to do it, because you have to kind of press the skin, and there's a technique that does it very smoothly. I even practiced it once by, you know, getting hooked. So I know it works. So check out on YouTube how to pull a hook out of your skin safely and easily.
Lisa, you raised your hand.
The video she's talking about was recommended by an emergency room doctor I know. So it works. Yes, it works.
Okay, I'm going to raise my hand.
Oh, and Olita, you raised your hand.
Well, we have something that's called 360, and all those that fish or hunt, we can block ourselves or use ourselves. And so when we're hunting or fishing and we're trying to find each other, all we have to do is, and it'll put us right on the dot. I mean, we can follow each other and find each other right on the spot. So there's a lot of different applications, and it can be for Android or it can be for the iPhone.
And what's it called?
360. But there are other applications that you can find them in the whatever store, whatever it's called store. But we use 360.
Mona, you have your hand raised.
I did. I think it's great to tell people where you're going, but because I fish also alone a lot. If my significant other husband is not home, I always call someone and say, if I haven't called you by 6 o'clock, this is where I'll be, and that means something has happened. Or call me first and see if I forgot to call you, but I think that's a good idea. I always do it, always.
Great idea.
So Mona,
Marianne.
I was going to ask a question, but Mona, I have to ask you something. So you said your significant other husband. Does that imply you have another significant other? Just had to give you a little hard time across the country there. So, hey, so I've got a question for all of you guys. I want you to close your eyes. Okay. And I want you to imagine you're in moving water. Okay. And you're going to take 2 steps. Where are your eyes focused?
My feet.
Yeah, my feet.
Your feet?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Water's edge. Downstream.
So what you really need, because what happens is, if you think about it, as soon as you go, you can open your eyes now, just in case some of you still have your or good listeners. I can see many of you already opened your eyes, and I didn't say it was okay to open your eyes.
Mother
But
may
now open your eyes, right? But if you will, if you look down, you know what you just did? You took this big bowling ball that's on your head, and you just put yourself in imbalanced position already. So what you really want to do, and this is what I do when I wade, is I'm not moving. I look and I map out my next 2 to 3 steps. Okay. Then I look up at the horizon. I get my head stacked up, just like I'm in Pilates class, right? I get my head stacked up, and then I take those 2 or 3 moves that I had already plotted out. And what do? I look down again. You got to understand, I'm also in Central Oregon. There's just more than one rock out here, right, Susan?
Yeah.
And then I look down again and I plot those next few steps, and then I go. So you never want to be looking down, because you just threw your balance off from square one by looking down. And I am ashamed to admit I didn't know that until about 4 years ago. So, but I started doing that, and it makes a world of difference. And I know it's scary to think I'm going to take a step, but if you map it out and you shuffle your feet, you're going to be so much safer. So,
Deborah, you have your hand raised.
thank you for that long interrupt.
Yes. Thank you, Marianne.
Hi. No one mentioned carrying a whistle. Everybody I fish with Georgia Women Fly Fishers, we actually kind of hand them out and make sure everybody has one when we go. So, you're a little separated. You can always use a whistle and kind of get everybody's attention. Just wanted to share that.
That's a great idea.
And if everybody looks at Karen's picture, she would be a big proponent of a little sunscreen. I do carry a sunscreen stick in my bag, and I know it's not healthy for your fly line, which is why I do a stick, because I don't have to get it all over my hands.
Oh, that's good.
But
yeah.
I forget about this part of my hand when I'm casting, and I have blistered this part of my hand if I'm not wearing a glove, because it's up towards the sun, and I forget to put my sunscreen stick right here. So those little bully sticks are only that big, and I keep it in my vest. I put it on my nose. Yeah.
And don't forget the tops of your ears too.
The tops of your ears, that I've had the top of my ear already, part of it taken off, because I forgot the top of my ear.
And the sunscreen you want to buy is the reef safe sunscreen, or the kind without any sodium benzoate, because it's toxic and kills critters in the ocean and the coral. It's horrible for coral. Like 30 feet from one dropping 30 feet will just kill everything. So definitely get the reef safe kind, which is more minerals, zinc, and stuff like that.
The other thing that I did regarding the backs of my hands is I bought some cheap gardening gloves that have kind of a plastic palm. and the fingers too. And I cut out the entire palm all the way around. And so there's just a little band around each finger that's left on the glove, and I cut the tips off. And that way my entire palm is bare, so that when I handle fish, I'm not injuring the fish, but the back of my hand is protected by the back of the glove, which is intact. And they're cheap. You can get them for like, I don't know, $6 or $7, and you can custom make them to your own hand.
Mhm.
That works.
And a
pretty-
hat too, of course, you
Oh,
know.
always a
we can all
hat.
be wearing hats.
Yeah. I have a really wide brimmed hat.
Mhm.
Good. Well,
Any other suggestions? This was really good.
It was, yeah. Thank you.
Excellent.
Oh, here we go. Marlene wants us to mention how to hold a fly rod so we don't get fly fishing carpal tunnel.
oh,
Who's
good
gonna,
idea.
Marlene, are you gonna demonstrate that? You're on mute.
Oh no, I thought you experienced that maybe you could share a little bit about it.
Hey, I'm happy to do that. Hold on a second.
Hold on, let me spotlight you, Marianne.
First, Dave has to go get my Tweety.
Oh, I wanted Sandy to explain what happened to her when she held the rod too tight for too long.
Yes, I did get, there is a diagnosis in Florida that he wrote a paper for a medical journal called Fly Fishing Carpal Tunnel, because I cast so tight and held the rod and moved my wrist too much. So they had to put a cortisone injection 3 times into the middle of my hand. I do not have carpal tunnel. It was a inflammation response to a lot of casting.
Well, guys, I did get carpal tunnel. I had to have surgery. I was in Canada, and I was catching 3 to 5 pound sea run brook trout. I did that over 10 days, and I caught like tons of them, about 300 of them, and the current was real strong. And I want you to know, my hand was just totally numb. Time I came back, I ended up having to have surgery. So I'm really looking forward to how I can keep that from happening.
Yes, Marianne's got her Tweety, so have a Tweety bird in your hand. No.
So the main thing is we have a tendency when we accelerate when we hold the rod. I remember that at first fishing trip for salmon, Dave's like, whatever you do, hold on to that rod, don't let go, right? So I would do a death grip. So you can see the white knuckles. Okay, you should never have white knuckles. Okay, so I think about, I got to switch my position a little bit here, which is of course not very fast. So I think about when I have a fly rod in my hand, I'm holding a little birdie. Okay, you would not squeeze a little birdie, would you?
Nope.
You would hold a little birdie nice and soft, and you can see, look how flexible that is in my hand. So that's how you kind of hold a fly rod. You should be able to pull that out. I had a lesson with Joan Wolf, and I was death gripping like this, and she literally walked up to me and tried to pull my rod out of my hand as I was accelerating. And her comment to me was she should have been able to pull that rod out of my hand. So, and even when you have a fish on, you don't need to be death gripping it. You just gotta hold it, right? It's not like a greased pig or anything like that. So, just think about a little birdie. So, and there's.
Thank you, Marianne.
And I squeeze at my stop, right? But still, it's not that much of a white knuckle. So.
Okay, can I ask you a question? When you say you just holding this little birdie, but when you got a black tip shark on there or a big giant albacore, how do you hold the birdie?
What? I would still try to, I don't know. I've never had a fish that big on, right? But I would still think about keeping a light hold on it. You don't have to death grip it. That's what causes the carpal tunnel.
And the death
So-
grip is in the cast also. I mean, you can hold on when you have your 250-pound tarpon, but you still should be casting. You can get a lot of line out with a 12 weight and not have to death grip your rod.
Yeah, and Alita, I think you can play a big fish without death gripping the cork. You know, because you should be using the length of the rod to play the fish, not your hand on the cork.
And your
You
hips,
know,
And your
what's that?
hips.
And your
and
hips.
your hips to
Yeah.
move them.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I've never had that pleasure, but if you want to fly me down there, I'll go and give you personal consulting.
When I get my boat, well, we have to get together, all of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. The other thing, I don't have anything flexible, but you know, a rod. So here's my rod. I got a fish on, right? A lot of people, a lot of guides are like rod tip up,
No.
because they just want you to keep a bend in the rod. It's actually smarter to
Right.
fight a fish with your rod horizontally, right? 'Cause
Right.
now you're, if you will, now you're using all 9 foot or 10 foot or 11 foot of your rod. I might put it rod tip up to net it, but if I'm playing it, I'm thinking of holding it horizontally. So
Okay, thank you so much.
How do you keep it horizontal but keep a bend in the rod?
you just do
Just the angle?
at the angle, right? Or just
Okay.
pulling back, right?
Yeah.
So, you know,
Hmm.
but straight vertical up will, that'll break the tip of the rod all the time.
Mm.
And if you will, right, if I have it more horizontal, maybe, right, is not only is the rod bent some more, but if a fish, you have a big fish on and you have like this, right, and you only got this part bent, they shake their head and they break off.
Well, that's
But
true.
if you've got it horizontal, then you're good. So, yeah, it's counterintuitive.
It is.
But this was about safety. Oh, that was safety on your rod, on your bamboo rod.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments or safety tips?
Great program.
Yeah, really
Great.
interactive.
Very
Thanks,
good.
guys. Lots of good questions, lots of good discussion. This group helps each other. I love that.
Susan,
you.
Susan, nice job in pulling out the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yep.
It was fun. Fun to put together too.
A nice job. Oops, you did a nice job, Susan.
Thank you.
I enjoyed your pictures too. I always love pictures.
Visual aids, we call them.
Oh, yes. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and I think the one with the boat overturned, not only know where you're going, but know your river. So in Montana, the Flathead in June is a different looking lady than the Flathead in August. And so we had 5 drownings by the 1st of July last year in
Oh, my God.
on the Flathead right outside of Whitefish. And people did not respect the river. She runs really slow and gets skinny in the summer, but after snow melt. And so, people should know God flushed a toilet in June. I mean, it is crazy. And, just have respect for Mother Nature.
There can be a lot of downed trees. That will actually block the river, and if you don't know it and you come up on it, you're gonna be in
And
trouble.
that's another good point to Mary Ann's point. If you're looking down at your feet, you're not seeing the log coming at you. Or the boater that's going by if you're on a river where people float. Yeah, it's a good idea to keep your head up and be aware and watch the river and watch the shoreline.
The other thing I didn't talk about at all because I don't really have experience with it is fishing in the winter on ice. And so probably somebody that actually does that should do that presentation, like maybe Corey Berrigan or Kate Lodge or somebody. Or Marlene, yeah. Because I know there's, you don't want to, there's lots of other issues that I'm not really aware of, so.
Got another point, if anybody's out float tubing. I took a friend out once and I didn't find out until she was on the lake that she didn't know how to swim.
Oh, Lord.
And yeah, but it got worse than that because she refused to accept the fact that it was not a recliner. And she kept throwing her feet up in the air. And once a float tube gets flipped over, it's almost impossible to get them right side up.
Oh my God.
So the first thing to ask somebody is, do you know how to swim? The other thing, we had an experience in Idaho where we all went fishing in a large group and some gals walked off and we didn't know if they drowned, but we also didn't know their last names or any emergency contacts.
Yeah.
And it got to be kind of a crazy thing. Know who you're fishing with and ask them if they know how to swim.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one I didn't hear, but I came in late, was bring a change of clothing.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In there.
Mhm.
Done
Yep,
that.
Been there and willing to admit it.
Mhm.
Always have an extra set in your car.
Mhm.
You know, I had a funny experience up in Canada about a year ago where there were 3 or 4, we were all over 70 fishing. And one by one, we all started going down. And I couldn't figure out why. And I came to think later that we all just got cold and our muscles got tired at the same time.
Yeah.
But we were discussing if we needed to bring walkers instead of wading sticks because it might be more stable. But
So,
we went down 1, 2, 3, bang.
okay. So FYI, Lorene, I don't know if she's ever joined on this. I won't give her a name. She figured out how to deal with 2 walking sticks.
Wow.
She's very
So-
effective with it. I
Yeah.
fished with her when she was using 2.
Yeah, she's
She
very
has
effective.
A holster for her rod and then 2 walking sticks.
Yeah, very
Wow.
effective, right? hmm
Hmm.
Yeah, ingenious.
Mhm.
So,
And I've had 3 lower back surgeries.
Oh, wow.
And I just figured out that I never fall in the morning when I'm fresh, but after lunch, the muscles in my back must start getting tired before I can tell they're tired. And that's when I fall.
Well, next week is instead of Build-A-Bear, we're Build-A-Fly. So have your basic materials, everybody should have. And I'm going to draw a name from a hat and somebody is going to start the fly and tell everybody what to do. So put on brown floss. And then I pull the next name and they say, okay, we're going to put on some green dubbing. And then I pull the next one and they say, well, get out your pheasant tail or whatever. I don't know what kind of fly we're going to end up with, but we'll send out pictures. Next week is Tuesday night is open fly, build a fly night. So come and build a fly.
in college, we called those trash can parties.
Trash can. Well, Sherry has the one of them that we're going to do sometime is build a fly from stuff you find in the house. So I'm selling my dust bunnies from under my bed for those that need materials. I have plenty of underwear that have lots of elastic too, though. Kate says they make good legs.
Right. Nugget better tuck her tail. I might trim some hair off of it.
There you go. Yeah, we have lots of dogs, so we'll see what they look like. So we'll see you all next week. Thank you, Susan. You have a whole chat full of thank yous and good jobs. And Nancy says, if you're in a tailwater, have the corpse information number on speed dial and check the schedule beforehand. That's an excellent tip.
But they don't know around here. They do not always follow it.
The core. I didn't mean to say corpse. I was
The
reading.
core. I mean, they may have a schedule and they may be following it, and all of a sudden they decide they need more.
They're gonna open one of the dams.
Open her
Yeah.
up. Yeah, so you
Yeah,
still
I
got to
read
keep
it
an eye on the
verbatim.
rock or something.
Don't they like blow a whistle or a horn or something?
No, they do, but the whistle, like at the Norfolk, the whistle is at the dam. So if you're fishing by the dam, you hear the whistle, but if you're downstream from there,
You can't hear it.
you can't hear it. And the same thing on the White, there's a whistle at the dam, but if you're downstream, you can't hear it. So you really, if you're on one of these tailwaters, you have to keep track of what the water's doing. I mean, for me, it's not as big of an issue because because of my physical issues, I don't wade out very far. But when you're halfway across the Norfolk River and it starts coming up and it's a canyon, you do not have a lot of time to get out. The other thing that they ended up doing is they just waded to the edge and they went right through somebody's yard up to the road.
Oh,
You know, so at that point, don't worry about trespassing through somebody's property to save yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Until next
you, everybody.
time,
Thank you,
until Bill
Susan.
to fly.
You
Good
bet.
night,
Okay,
everyone.
guys.
Am I the
Bye.
only one that
Thank you.
notices Sandy's new microphone?
No, I noticed it too. I thought she had a lizard on her face in the beginning.
No, that's a
Well,
fly.
at first I thought, oh my God, she's got one of those fancy gold headsets.
No, it's a fly for
Yeah,
safety night.
But at first I thought, there's a nice gold headset that people use that costs like $500. And I thought, oh, you had that. And then I started to notice you were really turning your head for all of us to notice. So did you glue that on with super glue
No,
or
I
Zap-A-Gap?
use tape.
Oh, okay. You should have used Zap-A-Gap. It wouldn't have fallen off so easy.
There you go.
That's some good tape you got there.
Yeah, no
Scotch
kidding.
tape. There you go. All right, ladies. Love y'all.
All
Stay
right.
healthy.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Stay safe.